All right, what's up, everyone? MK Tom Brady here. In this kind of Brady podcast kind of episode here, I wanted to talk about a potential update, hopefully coming soon. Obviously, things are a lot different now with people kind of being on stay home with coronavirus and everything. But before I get into any of this, a couple things I wanted to talk about. Uh, so people say to me, Tom, how can you be so sure that there's going to be some type of a major update? Or obviously now we don't really know what's going to happen going forward. The people still say, how can you be so sure that they have ever planned on doing some type of a major like overhaul update? And I can tell you why. So, first of all, there's a few things that I want to address when it comes to Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is one of those games to, obviously, if you've been following the series, you know, they don't really have much legacy. Mortal Kombat is literally a complete overhaul of the entire game system, how everything works, etc., from one game to the next. This causes a lot of really good things and a few really bad things. But the bad things turn into good things. So, first of all, let's start with the bad. The bad is, well, the good, it's good and bad in both ways. So, first, the good things, I should say. There are a ton of ideas that get thrown around. So, for example, in Mortal Kombat 11, people always talk about why are the variations so bland? Why is this? Why is that? Why Fatal Blow? Why the meter regen? Why? So I believe that I can hopefully answer all these things here. A lot of people have, including myself, and I guess I went too far with this. A lot of people have really kind of been like, a lot of this stuff, they could have done so much more, this and that. Well, let me try to explain. You see, the thing is, you have so many new things to implement from one Mortal Kombat to the next. So say in this game, one, you have a ton of moves per character. And I really do feel like they were feeling like, okay, really what moves do these variations get? We have so many moves that we can use. What variation gets what? Meter system, right? I mean, okay. Obviously, the idea was in past Mortal Kombat games, we have seen characters abuse the meter system. In MK9, we saw characters just have tons of meter while others were starving for it. Even in MKX, which they implemented the stamina system, which, okay, you may build 1,000 bars of meter, but, stamina is going to prevent you from breaking when you want to break sometimes, whatever. But there are some characters who never even used that half the time. And like, I remember Melina, who almost never went forward. So she would break her at least 2 times around. And if you weren't ultra aggressive on her, she could actually build a third breaker in a round if you were too hesitant against her. You had to press at least a little bit, which also fed into, her game plan. Characters like Alien, which could build, tons of meter, because just the range they were able to do, pokes and the special moves. And it seems like they always had meter for something, some type of a special, some type of an armored launcher. So as while everybody had armored launchers, it just seemed like, why does this character have an armored launcher every 5 seconds at their disposal, or some type of armored move to get up with, where one's overhead, one's low, etc. And while the rest of us are, kind of struggling here to gain meter. Or kind of like Liu Kang, how much meter he could build, just suffocating you with offense and with pressure. So I feel like they looked at it and said, okay, we had this problem in MK9, didn't get solved in MKX. Let's try something new, which is something that those guys who are at NetherRealm are never afraid to do. They're never afraid to try something new. So let's have meter regen on its own, both offensively and defensively. And then I'm sure the concept of, okay, how is this going to work though in between rounds during, crushing blow or fatal blow cutscenes? Like how's the meter going to regen? When is it regen? When is it not regen, etc. Breakaway, the breakaway mechanic. Okay, should they just drop? I'm sure they probably understood the consequence of, man, people are going to get full comboed here sometimes because of breakaways. They're going to get full comboed for hitting you, and we see that some people's strategy actually is, if it's hard to approach you, part of their strategy is, look, when they hit me and I break away, now's my chance. Because my meter is going to come back on its own. I'm having trouble getting in. If I break away at the right time, I'm in. So, and we see people do this, which is why some people like to break away like ultra fast. Like even if, like as a Sub-Zero player, you slide somebody, they're going to break away right away, right? Okay, he's right next to me, and now I want to, do whatever and make sure he stays that way. Fatal blow. It's X-rays were not. So the X-ray was a really, really cool feature implemented in Mortal Kombat. MK9 was the first time they did this, where they really expand. The meter system comes from Mortal Kombat versus DC, where originally before MK versus DC, you were able to build. You weren't able to build breakers. You had a preset number of breakers in the last two 3D MKs, two of the three, the Deception and Armageddon, before the MKDC series, or game, I should say. So you had only 3 breakers per match. And then in MKDC, you didn't have preset breakers. You were able to build breakers, or you could use Rage if you had a full super meter with 2 bars. Mortal Kombat 9 expanded upon that by giving you the breaker, then the EX move, or the EX move for the 1 bar, 2 bars you could breaker, and 3 they now gave you the X-ray, which was kind of like the first time Mortal Kombat ever gave you a super move. The problem with that is very few X-rays were practical. And most of them, outside of maybe 2 or 3, outside from Kung Lao and Sub-Zero in MK9, X-rays were terrible as, in combos. And they weren't as good as standalone moves either. And MKX saw the same problem. X-ray combos were awful. Like, why would you use an X-ray outside? I don't even think any character really. X-ray was really beneficial for almost nobody in that game. I may be not remembering, but in general, there were a few that had really good uses of them, I guess, but for the most part, again, the same thing as MK9, not more than a handful. So by separating the super move, quote unquote, the X-ray, from the resource, now you could use them. See, like I said, again, going back to MK9, outside of a couple of characters, the X-ray was not worth the resource you were using outside of probably 2 characters. Now, the resource is separated from the super move, so to speak, which is Fatal Blow. So you don't have to worry about, if I Fatal Blow, am I going to be out of offensive capability? Am I going to be out of defensive capability? What am I sacrificing? And 2, they used to scale horribly outside of maybe one or two characters in combos. Now, Fatal Blow combos are devastating. They're so devastating that obviously you only get Fatal Blow once per game. So when you use it and it hits, it's gone. Obviously, how is this mechanic going to work? Does it come back on its own? How soon? How whatever? These are a lot of questions that, were caused by a lot of the new innovations, like the custom combat, the custom variation feature, the Fatal Blows, the new meter system, the breakaway instead of a breaker, all kind of mechanics that were being the wake up system. Because again, some people were like, well, my move isn't good. My move can't come out in time. My move it was always something. There was always a problem with you're playing against Liu Kang and MKX. I can't get up. I don't have 2 hits of armor. On my, but Liu Kang gets up all the time because he does. Like there was always whatever. So they kind of built the system to be very fair across the board. Hey, let's make sure the system is very fair. And they did that. And it is very, very fair. But look at all these new features that I'm implementing here. I dare say these are more new features than they've ever implemented in the NRS era. Mortal Kombat 9 implemented a lot from Mortal Kombat DC. They just made it 2D. MKX with the breakers and the X-ray and a few other things, they rebuilt a lot of things, but some of the, functions of how is the meter going to work, how whatever, it still stayed the same. Mortal Kombat 11, they literally said, screw it, tossed it all out. Meter, armor, they tossed it all out. So really, they had a lot to implement. Now, the thing is, when you have so many things that you want to implement, naturally, there's a lot of ideas going on. How do we implement? How do we implement? But of course, they're on a deadline. They've got to get the product ready to be able to be shipped by X date, right? And there's a lot that goes into this, right? How is this going to function? How is that going to function? Making sure everything works, et cetera, et cetera. So the process of getting the game up and running and functioning fine and making it a quality product takes quite a bit of time. You can't just slap a game together really quick and say, okay, now that's where you have to make sure that everything works right and that it's a quality product. And they did that. For bugs aside, and every game has that. I mean, to any game that has no bug, throw the first stone, and I don't really think any game doesn't have something that came in unintentionally. So during this time period, you have to understand the game is being developed and there's a lot of ideas. Maybe we'll do this with meter, maybe that with meter, maybe this variation would be really good and that or maybe these set of moves would be really good. But look at the time it takes to get the game ready to be shipped and then have all these ideas. And then finally, when it comes down to, okay, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? It's a lot. It's a lot, especially when you have a team of people who work very hard and probably haven't slept very much in the last, almost 2 years. And for people on the outside who have never been there and who have never seen it, who have never seen the days where, you got the 2 lead designers, Paulo and John, unless they have had more kids since then. One has 4 kids, one has 5 kids. They have enough kids to literally, their kids could have a full court basketball game. You've got family at home, and you're at work, living in the office 2 weeks at a time. It's when the designers go home to sleep, it's a big deal. Wow, Paulo went home tonight? John went home? Because they haven't been home in a month. They've been sleeping an hour a day. So when you have, and this applies for everyone there, they've all got family. They all have, lives that are all put on hold to give us this product that we love. And they do the best they can. And just sometimes there's just not enough. Maybe if we had Kryptonian days on a 28 hour a day clock instead of 24, maybe that would be the solution. But there's just not enough time to do everything that has to be done and then, brainstorm some of these ideas. There's so much. I mean, I don't think you guys realize how much content they pumped into this game. I hear a lot of people talk about how boring the game is, how stale it is, but you don't realize the content that they pumped into this game. So it's my take, and this is how I know, going back to the original topic, how I know there's going to be a future update here that's going to be massive. It is my opinion that there's a lot of things that they wanted to do, starting with the variations. The variations have come under very, very heavy fire, including by myself. But let me tell you why I believe the variations seem very, very bland, and the game seems kind of bland or not as, I don't know the word, whatever as it should be, right? Because when you have deadlines and you're getting close to them, it comes down to what can we do to ensure a quality product. They probably said, they make vanilla-esque variations because at least we can ensure the quality of the product. I assure you, Gears doing sand trap was well known about, but at least they knew how, oh yeah, we'll give him this, right? He's going to run away with low sand. You can't zone him. He hits you with it. Then he puts you in the throw loop, or if you guess wrong, he does the throw. But at least it was, okay, we understand how that's going to work, right? Aaron Black, we got it, man. Back 2-2, we got the forward 4, the slide, we got it, man. Scud shot, Sub-Zero, overhead, EX Ice Ball, low, forward 2, fatal blow, EX Ice Ball beats zoning, converts off everything because of it. These kind of things were, okay, we know exactly how this is going to play out. So let's play it safe rather than giving stuff that we don't know exactly how it's going to play out yet because we haven't had time to properly, thoroughly look into and think about this. Think about how much time it would take to look into every possible combination of moves, right? Think about this. Take a single character and think about how it would, for them to say, okay, this combination would be okay, but the slotting points don't work right. Let's make this combination. It makes an interesting variation. Let's change the slotting point. There's so much work that goes into that. And you just don't have time for that. But what you could do is say, let's make very safe-ish kind of variations. We kind of know the balance. Okay, you're going to have Cetrion and Geras and I guess later on upgraded Jackie, and okay, we understand all this and we can adjust that accordingly once the game is out. But, an upgraded Jackie was obviously added later on. And then once the game is, and the same thing with meter, okay, meter, I mean, when does it come back? How does it come back? How fast, how slow? Fatal blow. I mean, how is this going to work? There's a lot of things that you just don't have time to properly test. And what I believe they did was said, okay, because we do not have the time to properly see how we can implement it in this manner, we're going to put in the ways that we know we can properly implement it. And then we'll go back and revisit it later. Now, they've already said that they plan on supporting Mortal Kombat 11 for quite a long time. I don't quite know what that means. Are they trying to say, guess what? We're going to break the 2-year cycle. This is the game that we're going to give you 3 years of content and updates and etc. Who knows? But I really believe that, they figured, okay, and then once the game is launched, of course, Pro Series stuff starts right away. Now, once you get into the Pro Series, you can't then halfway through it completely overhaul the game, right? Because it's now not the same game. And people that qualified under these rules, the game is now going to be finished and finalized under these set of circumstances. And that's not very fair. So it's kind of like once you start this Pro Series, especially when you begin to kind of really get into the thing, you kind of have to keep some things in the game locked. Like, you now can't say, okay, customs, let's do it. That's no good. You can't say we're going to change how the meter works, how the fatal blows actually work. We can't change how the breakaway works. You can't change those core fundamental elements halfway through a Pro Tour. It's just not fair. And if they would have done that, all the people right now that are kind of like, why aren't these things changed, would then be crucifying them. Why change them in the middle of a... So they're in a lose-lose scenario. No matter which way they go, somehow they're wrong. So they did the logical and fair option. But what does this mean? This means that over the last year, they have had plenty of time to be testing these other things, right? Like, clearly they knew there's a lot of new things that they're not done with. And they will probably want to implement a lot of things. But over this last year, they have plenty of time to test them, right? Okay, let's maybe kind of fool around with the meter here. What can we do with this? How can we tweak this? Breakaway, okay, getting comboed for comboing somebody. All right, what can we tweak about this? Fatal blows, how can we tweak this, right? Customs, maybe not opening them up, or maybe they do want to open them all up to customs. How do we do that, right? How do we make it easy to pick whatever? How do we make sure that the combinations can be balanced, right? Or maybe we're kind of redefining the three variations. How do we do that? What combinations are unfair? Like, for example, I think my ground puddle variation is fair. To be honest with you, if you give Sub-Zero Slide, which is his base, Amplified Ice Ball, and then maybe Creeping Ice, first of all, Slide, make sure you can't move. Then he's coming in and mixing you up with Forward 2, EX Ice Ball, and back. I mean, that could be a little... I don't really know. I think you could overcome it, and I'm sure there are some combinations, some moves like Terminate and other combinations where, perhaps some people that don't think about it, but if you put those combinations together, you're like, wow, this is actually ridiculous. So there are some really, really strong combinations in the game, and it's, with a year since the game has been launched, they have had a long time to tweak that. That's a year of information that they haven't had time to really kind of collect before the game was launched. I mean, they could even monitor customs, like how much data they're getting, like what combinations are being used, what are the most common combinations, and they can kind of test these out for themselves. Okay, in custom mode, what are the most ridiculous ideas people are coming up with? Is this fair? Is it unfair? Can we make it fair? Etc. Just all these kind of things that they just, maybe didn't have time to implement then, but have had, okay, now we have lots of time to really kind of gather that data, Fatal blows. Before we go ahead and say, we have 10 ideas how they could work, we don't have time to properly ensure the quality of the product and really kind of hash through all 10 or 20 ideas we have for this. Let's kind of see how it plays out. And now NetherRealm has oftentimes been crucified for not letting things play out for long enough and then gathering that data and then making a massive change. But then, of course, when they do, then they're crucified for where are the changes. So again, they just can't win for losing. for the most part. It's like, we do one, we're wrong. The other, we're wrong. So, and I'm pretty sure guys that work so hard are tired of hearing how they do everything wrong. So we've got to keep that in mind when it comes to the game. I feel like over the last year, they have gathered a ton of data on meter, how it regens, if they can tweak it, breakaways, customs, fatal blows, etc. They have a much better idea of what they want to do. And I honestly, in my heart, believe that after the Pro Series ended, they were like, okay, when the Pro Series ends, we're going to go through our final finishing touches. And then when we got everything ready, we're going to present it. I can speak, I swear. That we will present it to the community. And then we will let the community kind of like, hey, this is what's coming down the pike. These are our ideas, whatever. And everybody gets really excited. You got Combat Pack 2 on the horizon. You got all kind of game changes. A complete overhaul to the system and the characters and the variations. And wow, they really stepped it up. The problem is literally the final weekend of the Pro Series, the world went into lockdown, which kind of throws everything into like, okay, we probably want to finalize everything before we put it out there for public consumption. And they're not able to do that. And obviously, we want everybody to stay safe. Nobody wants anybody at the risk of their health or their family's health to rush, let's get this game out for the people. Who cares about our family and our health? We obviously don't want that. We want those guys over there to take their time, stay safe, keep their family safe, etc. But this is how I'm very confident that we're in for a major change. And that the game that we really know this can become, it will become. A lot of people say, Tom, why'd you take so many of your videos down this last time? It's because I noticed that I was so negative toward the game that I had become an obstruction of change. Sometimes you're so negative. You could have a great idea or an idea that maybe isn't super great as it is, but can be turned into something even better, And when you're so negative, when you take a mechanic and you spend 10 minutes blasting it to the ground, to the point that anybody watching goes, this is incompetent. The game is incompetent. The people that made it are incompetent. Because that's what it looks like when you take a mechanic and rip it to the floor, right? Like the wake-up system when I originally covered it. Like, why this? Why that? Why does this whatever? Why? When you do this, it makes people look at the video and say, stupid game. I'm not going to waste my time, right? And as a developer, when stuff is so negative, the negativity just becomes white noise. And you watch something and you say, yeah, I got it, man. We're dumb. We're incompetent. Next, you turn it off. The idea goes nowhere because you're so negative. The idea gets no traction. The game doesn't grow because everybody gets turned off. They see their favorite YouTuber or streamer unhappy. They become unhappy. They spread that unhappiness to the game toward their friends. Their friends are unhappy. Their friends' friends are unhappy. Their friends' friends' friends are unhappy. Then you have a game in which dialogue between people who are big content creators and community leaders is completely cut off with people that have the power to change things because just how absolutely negative you are presenting every possibility in the game. You're not bringing new people to the game. You're turning more and more people off to the point that even if every single thing that people wanted implemented got implemented, the game was presented by so many people, myself included, so negatively that even if they said, bam, here is it all right here, right? The new MK11 edition. People had been will be so turned off by all this negativity that they would say, I'm not coming back to that game. They probably messed something else up, We'll just wait for the next video to talk about, how bad this is. And you become more part of the problem than a solution. And that's why people say, why the new attitude? Why the new way of presenting things or looking at things? That's why. So, in my opinion, I believe we will get a major update. In my opinion, we're going to get a huge overhaul of a lot of things. We just have to realize that it's not that they didn't want to do a lot of these things day one, but there was just so much to do that they wanted to first make sure that the product was a quality product, and then things they didn't have enough information on, they held off on and said, let's gather more information. And then when we really know what we want to do, what's best for the game and its community, then we'll go ahead and do it. Really, for things like that, they should be more applauded than butchered. And I regret to say I took the butchering route. I know those guys there. I've been there. I've seen how hard they work. And just sometimes it's just not enough hours in the day to really know how to do all these new ideas. And so like I said, the no legacy is a blessing and a curse in disguise. Sometimes the blessing of it doesn't come until its second life cycle, so to speak. When they can really say, okay, now that we have more information, we can really let the product really shine. Not that it didn't shine, it did. But they can say, now we're really going to flex the muscle of this system and really going to get everything we can now that we have more information of knowing what we can do within the confines of what's fair, what's too strong, what's not strong enough, etc. Now that they have gathered that information, they can really kind of flex the muscle of a lot of these ideas, and a lot of probably what their original idea of where the game could go is really going to come to fruition. We just got to give them time. I would say keep playing. If you haven't played, maybe it's a good time to dust it off and start playing. Changes are coming. At this point, I would say sooner than later. If it wasn't for the fact that we're pretty much locked down right now, we'd already know about them, and I think some of the changes would already begin to be being implemented. But this is how I'm pretty sure that I could say I would. It's safe to say I'm more sure than not that a lot of huge game-changing things are happening. Just my 2 cents, just my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. It's a solo act, and I know it's not the Rio and M2 Dave Cy-Fox podcast, but I just wanted to kind of put this out there. Just some food for thought while we're all getting through this, and yeah. So thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for all the support, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. Thanks for watching, everyone.